let's just talk about the customer first. Like we talked about, law enforcement, fire service. I mean, obviously for civilian use, depending on where you're living and what you're doing, this could be helpful. It's something that could easily fit in your car, right?
A lot of guys are planning on buying one for them for work and one to throw in the glove box for the wife or the center console. We do have some Kydex sheaths and storage options coming soon. We kind of expedited our sales, so they're not available yet. Thank you guys for being so supportive, but the demand, we weren't planning on releasing these until June, but the demand was, I need it now, I need it now, I want it now, and people were begging for it, so I was like, all right, so I called the guys like, hey, let's do a launch at TTPOA. That seems reasonable, we can get the website up and running. Just getting e-commerce and website up and running is
Ask me how I know.
Like, thank God we have guys who are so talented and tech savvy and super capable of doing this stuff, because I'd still be messing with this thing.
So so on that, with like on the e-commerce side, like where can they get these things?
Right now, because we had to expedite, we're gonna be hosting it on Colonel Blade's website for the launch, which is tomorrow, Wednesday, the 23rd. So this will probably air afterwards, but I'll make sure it's all over social media. Everybody who signed up for the email subscription should be getting an email notification like, hey, heads up, here's the link. It'll be live at 12 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And the price point is $99 or $99.99.
So $100.
$100.
So let's talk about that, like in the price point. So here's what so you mentioned something about law enforcement officers and their fitness and them being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of that. I think it's an interesting market, right? And like in studying it over time, just like from the fitness side, but also from the firearm side, from the equipment side, and whatever else. This is what I picked. This is my outside looking in. One, where do you learn about this stuff? So you learn about it a couple different ways. One, you may have been wanting to be a police officer for a long time. You've done a lot of, let's just say, pre-work, pre-studying. Sure. You're around, maybe you're around other officers. It's in the family lineage somehow. Mm-hmm. So you get an idea there. Or maybe you were a former military. So you have some idea of kind of equipment needs, what works, what doesn't work to some extent. Levels of training vary based on the things that you did or didn't do. Then maybe you go to the academy, which everybody has to go at some point. Yep. You're issued certain equipment. Mm-hmm. And it's usually the bare minimum equipment.
Sadly.
Yeah. And you're also then, whatever you're issued, you have to qualify with. And so there's some type of a quote, end quote standard, right? That's expected of you. And that's usually, that proficiency can be argued as likely pretty low. And then after that, you get on the street, right? And then you're working with like an FTO, and then you're working on in a unit or something like that, or on a shift where you're picking things up along the way and you're seeing things happen in real time. But there's things that get strapped to that equipment. There's furniture that gets put on things, and there's like, oh, I need that because that guy has that and I saw him use it and that's important. And then like, where do I find out more about that? Well, you go to the internet, because all the answers in the world are on the internet. It's a powerful thing, but it can be very confusing. It can be a rabbit hole. It can be very misleading at a lot of times. And so, again, my experience is like things like weapon-mounted lights, as an example. I've been to a few law enforcement trainings with weapon-mounted lights, and it's always an interesting cast of characters, as well as a discovery process that I'm watching happen for folks that are there. They're recognizing, well, I knew I needed a light, and I got 2 hours of training on this at some point in my academy, however long that lasted, in whatever environment that was. And so, okay, I need a light. I understand the value of having a light. Now I got to go get one. I'm a starving first-year officer who's also trying to have a life and buy a house and lifted trucks and things like that, or whatever.
That's a firefighter thing.
Oh, whatever. And then so I go out and I buy something, and where do I go? I go to Amazon, or I go to the local shop, and let me see the lights. And it always comes down to how much does this cost? Yeah. And so going back to the lazy part, whether it's lazy or just not informed or not knowing how to make a good buying decision, they're going to buy whatever they can quote unquote afford, or more specifically, they want to pay. Yeah. And that price ultimately drives a lot of the buying decisions. Sure. And again, going back to this like weapon mounted light thing, like you recognize real fast what the capabilities of your equipment are or they aren't. And it's shocking, I think, to a lot of people. Yeah. And then the first thing to do is like, I don't want this light. I want the one that the guy next to me has because it's doing so much better, or whatever the case is. And then they find out that light costs $300.
Yeah.
And then they immediately go back to, oh, that's too much money.
Yeah.
I can't spend that. Completely forgetting about everything they just learned, right? And witnessed, including the performance of their piece of equipment. So I wonder about that, just in kind of coming up with the price point and where that comes from and what you're doing with that.
So I built, basically, because it's designed for first responders and military, I built a discount into it. So I made it as affordable as humanly possible, that it still makes sense to run a business. Okay. So the individual officer discount is not going to exist. I'm sorry if you wanted an extra $5 or $10 off. We can't do it any cheaper. Okay. If we can find cheaper manufacturing, maybe down the road, sure. I'm always open to it, because I'm not in this to basically buy a Tesla or buy a freaking plane. Like, I'm doing this because I care about this community so much that I'm blessed to be a part of, and I take a lot of passion into it. But my opinion, regardless of where you work, sorry if your contract sucks, but 1 or 2 hours of overtime will pay for this. Maybe 1 hour, depending on where you work, maybe 2. It's not a huge lift financially. And again, for the capability at that price point, I felt like it was a happy medium. Now, if your whole agency wants to buy 200 of them, then we can start talking discount, because then again, we're running a business, and I lean on my business partners for all of this stuff. And again, they've been amazing and mentoring me and guiding me through this whole process. But one of the staples that we all agreed on from day one when I presented to them was, we're not going to price gouge the consumer market. 1, I love first responders and military. 2, I love prepared civilians. Nothing makes me happier than hearing about a concealed carry permit holder carrying a gun and shooting the active shooter before I get there. Like, beautiful. You just saved lives. Or the guy who's just a prepared civilian who keeps one of these maybe in this truck, and he pulls a person out of a vehicle on fire before the car blows up. Like, I don't know anybody who would be mad about that. So the prepared civilians and first responders, military, like, you all have a special place in my heart, and I wanted to make this thing specially priced as aggressively as possible, again, to offer capability at a reasonable price.
Yeah, so I think, again, we're going back to, it's $100. If you're balking at $100, then I'm gonna be honest. You're not the cop I want showing up on scene when my daughter's trapped in her car.
I mean, depending on where you live, that's like 6 beers.
Yeah,
like where I mean, maybe around here, maybe a little bit less.
At this hotel, it definitely is less than 6 beers.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that right now.
Exactly.
Ask me how I know.
Or, God, I know so many people that have spent way more money on this most silly things that they thought would enhance capability. I'm guilty of it too. I have shoe boxes and storage bins full of gear. Again, I'm sorry, honey. I still hope you forgive me. But she's always trying to get me to garage sale all this shit, and it's part of my process of testing and evaluating how can I make something better, because I do have nylon products and a couple other things on deck to bring to market, and that's all through that process as well. But again, at $100, again, I don't know whatever his financial situation is. I'm not trying to insult you. If you have an ex-wife and 6 kids or whatever to pay for, I know $100 could be a big lift. But again, for these days and running a small business, this is the lowest we could get.